Yo, what's up lads, you're with Budget Monk and welcome to a new video. In this video I wanted to talk about my personal favorite form of subject, which is a personal union. So playing as Castile here, I'm having a really good game. I play on very hard difficulty, but Castile is one of the more powerful nations in the game in my opinion, and we're doing fabulously well. With that being said, there is this little kind of issue, or at least I used to perceive it as being an issue, and now it depends. But you often inherit the personal union of Navarra from Aragon once you get the Iberian wedding. Previously, what I would do in the past is diplo-vassalize him very quickly from the onset of the game, and that way you can annex him within the country in 10 years. But I want to use Navarra as an example of how interesting personal unions can be. So in this case, you can see I've given him actually two provinces that I originally began with, and that is because they're within the Bordeaux trading region. So the fact that we're losing these provinces does not have any detriment at all in the long run in terms of trade, which is the real moneymaker. Yes, hypothetically, these could be devved up. The Grasslands province in particular would be more interesting. And if you dev production or something like that, you're only going to be actually benefiting from the production as opposed to the goods produced of the province, which makes you a lot more money in trade. So I wouldn't want to dev this land before I dev in Seville. That's why I gave it to him. But of course, there are many different nations, such as Navarra, who have very nice mission trees. And I'm not sure if you guys realize this, but when it comes to a direct subject, basically any non-tributary, you know, they all count towards a world conquest achievement, for example. And they can actually be quite useful in the sense that technically it is one of the only ways at all to conquer or annex land for literally for free. So what I mean by that is if you have claims or permanent claims and you are able to annex some land by just simply releasing a nation, or if you have a CB like Days Vault or Imperialism and you are able to full annex a tag by simply just releasing that nation, this is one of the only ways to actually make substantial gains in EU4 without costing you monarch points, which are one of the biggest limitations in the game. But of course, there's another way, and that is also to feed subjects their claims. Now, if you have no intention of actually annexing a subject, that is just literally free land. So if you're going to do this, you're going to want to be pretty deliberate about where it is that you're actually feeding a nation. And that's why you can see that the Bordeaux trading region is not a detriment for me to lose that. You know, projected way down the line, if we dominated the English Channel, then we would also dominate Champagne, and then all of Bordeaux would flow through to either location. But in the meantime, it's very little. And in fact, you can spend some time sort of theory crafting about how and what might work for you. So in our case, we're probably going to grow our influence over Genoa quite dramatically in the coming years. I'm annexing Naples right now, and I just diplo-vassalized this Italian, for example. Unfortunately, no Italians on the Genoan side, but you can see how much I own. Now, with that being said, we would be able to pull a significant amount from Champagne. At the moment, most of it's coming through, as you can see, but that might not always be the case. The thing is that if I decide to give all of Bordeaux to Navarra, then we may also want to feed him more because it's free, right? And that is a great way to avoid the governing capacity issues that you're often going to run into. And my plan is actually to just concede Champagne to him and let him have it permanently. We're still going to be able to pull a significant amount, and what most likely will happen is Navarra's trade port is here, is he will actually end up collecting in Champagne, and that will actually reduce his own personal trade power from local trade power, meaning we will get more trade pulled out from Champagne, even though we don't own the provinces. I'm not sure if anybody's following, but this is a good setup. Now let's talk more about personal unions. The reason they're superior to, for example, vassals, which you can technically do the exact same thing with a vassal, like Byzantium would be a great example of an amazing mission tree. The reason they're superior is quite simple. It's because they have two modifiers, or the lack of two modifiers. One being liberty desire due to development, it just doesn't exist, and liberty desire due to combined army strength. So they have relative army power to the overlord, as you can see, but your subjects, that modifier is all of your vassals or marches, etc., combined into one, whereas a personal union is just their individual power. Personal unions are actually technically superior to any other fully, non-tributary subject in the sense that they can actually become kingdom and empire government rank, giving them more of their own governing capacity, and also giving them cultural unions. A long time ago, some of you guys might remember, I did the All-United Nations Challenge where I tried to have every culture in Europe accepted via using that strategy between myself and my subjects via cultural unions. So we would basically have a French personal union, an Italian personal union, etc. That means they're actually going to have more powerful states because whether a province is accepted or not in terms of culture, it actually affects the stated provinces pretty substantially. You can see the penalty here on the state of 33% tax, 33% manpower, pretty significant. And the other reason I really like personal unions, even though they're so much more powerful because they're just so superior in the sense that you can feed them and have huge, powerful personal unions without liberty desire, the other reason is because they actually do not give you tribute in any way. And what that means is basically they have a much more stable economy. Now, there's a little bit of a misconception that they're worse that they don't give you tribute, which is not true, because you can actually siphon money from them. You can siphon money from them, which will take money relative to the strength of their economy. But what is so much more convenient about siphoning income, as opposed to just receiving tribute, is you can siphon when it's convenient for your subject. So you can see here, he's embraced the institution recently and he has debt. Well, he's making good income. And not only will he pay off his loans, he will invest the money and so on. They're essentially an independent nation in most ways, like they can get a cultural union and get government rank and so on. It's just simply, I believe, a 25% force limit penalty for being a subject. But otherwise, they're fully under your control. So a little bit of information about personal unions. There are many different nations who can PU quite easily, and I think it's kind of underrated. An example is Muscovy can PU Tver or Ryazan very early and quite easily and consistently in the beginning of the game. And Ryazan has very little trade power in Novgorod, but yet his capital is within Novgorod, meaning that if you feed him Urstakan, Kiev, etc., he will actually use his own merchants to pull power into Novgorod whilst not taking much of that trade income. It's just something to think about. A lot of people, they reach a bottleneck in terms of governing capacity. Consider feeding your subjects. So a really good way to feed your subjects is to, if we're rivaling somebody like France, even with missions aside, your subjects may make claims like this. And what you can actually do is manually claim provinces yourself, which you might like. So, for example, the Genoan region. And if you use your subject's claim, CB, it will allow you to take your claims for yourself and their own claims in the same war without costing diplo points or anything like that. So you can actually, by combining multiple nations, you and one subject of your choice, you can improve the value of the regular claim casus belli, affecting more provinces. Finally, I want to talk about a little bit of advice as to if you're playing a nation who doesn't get a personal union, but you might want to incorporate that into your strategy. There might be an area which doesn't really benefit you, and you're feeling a little bit inspired by what I spoke about. Well, there are some methods in which you can create a little personal union, and I'll use this vassal to demonstrate that. So first you would like to release a vassal or diplo-vassalize, or you're going to have to vassalize the nation in which you would like to PU. And you can actually enforce your dynasty on that nation, as you can see here. Now, what you're going to want to do after you place a relative on the throne, I'll show you here. Very often their claim can be weak or medium. It's not going to be high, as you can see. Boom. So it's not always going to be weak, but I just want you guys to understand that, especially if you put it on, if his ruler is older and near death, then The next heir may be weak after that. Anyway, the point is, what you do after you've done this is you simply give them their independence. All right, so it's going to take a few moves to set this up, but this is not necessarily the best example, right? What you could do if you're looking for something really safe and consistent is you could do something like Galicia, for example. So you might want to have a personal union which colonizes, like Portugal. Well, most of these nations, like Asturias, Leon, they actually have colonists. So you could generate colonists, just as an example. Maybe you're not playing as Spain, but instead France, and you're wondering about what to do with this area, right? Well, release them as a vassal. Now, with that being said, you're going to have a problem if you break your subject overlord, if you're no longer their overlord and you're sitting there poised and ready to claim their throne and go in because they share dynasty with you, somebody else might kill them. And if you ally or guarantee, then you'll have a truce when the alliance or guarantee breaks. But there is another option, which is to simply warn. You can send a warning. So this means you defend all nations which you border. So that's really the ideal kind of circumstance. Just to reiterate, maybe you're playing in the Russian region, but you don't want to form Russia due to your challenge. So you don't have Siberian frontier. So an example of what you might want to do is to release this tag because they have a colonist. And your intention might be to actually PU them, feed them, and have them colonize, and have them as a permanent fixture of your country, which you never intend to incorporate. So you release them, enforce dynasty, break, your subject, and warn the neighbors, and you just sit there and wait until they have a weak claim or no heir. You don't have a truce, so you have plenty of time in the game, right? And you go in, it might take you 50 years if you're unlucky. But most likely when their ruler or heir dies, one of the two, there's about a 50-50 chance that you just go in, claim the throne, and PU them. So that's how you can access a personal union strategically, which might benefit you. And this is one of my favorite things to do, which I just don't see all that often really utilized, is to take advantages of proper PUs. Just to reiterate, I plan to basically give Navarra the entire French region. He's already manually promoted Francen culture and Gascon, and I'm sure he'll have the slot and he'll be perfectly willing to do Burgundian and Breton as well. And he's going to own all of that. And isn't it lovely on the color as well? So I hope you guys learned something and this benefited you. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in another video.